Good morning. The world is in such a distressing state. This is a little bit of light relief while we wait for the kingdom to come. It's another story of Elisha, but it illustrates this time how we can rely on God's promises. Everything he says will come exactly true. So we start off in 2 Kings chapter 2. Now Elisha had been accompanying Elijah and learning the trade of being a prophet. But the time had come when Elijah was going to leave, so he says to Elisha, and by this time they are on the far side, the east side of the Jordan River. In verse 9 it says, when they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, "Ask what I shall do for you before I'm taken from you." And Elisha says, "Please let there be a double portion of your spirit on me." Elijah says, "You've asked a hard thing. And yet, if you see me as I'm being taken from you, it shall be as you wish." And almost immediately there was a chariot of fire, several chariots of fire, and horses of fire, which separated the two prophets. Now Elisha was to see many of the Lord's chariots of fire in a vision, and something that with our minds of imagination we can see ourselves. So Elisha cried out because Elijah was taken from him in a whirlwind, and Elisha was upset because he'd lost his mentor. But what it meant was that Elisha would get a double portion of spirit. What did that mean in practical terms? Well, Elijah had performed 8 miracles, so Elisha was to perform 16. Now, Elisha starts his career, and he's a very faithful and courageous prophet, someone whose example we can copy. And I want to look at the end of his career, although his whole career is most interesting. Elisha goes through his career and he performs 15 miracles and he dies. And you think, oh, what a shame. Could he not just have lived a little bit longer? Is the hand of the Lord too short? Well, obviously not. So, at the end of his life then, we turn to 2 Kings chapter 13 and verse 20. So Elisha died and they buried him. Well, what that actually meant was that they put his body in a cave where it would dehydrate. And usually they would put a stone across the mouth of the cave. Now, the verse goes on to say, "Now the bands of Moabites used to invade the land in the spring of the year." And the next verse goes on to describe how people from a nearby village, they were going to bury one of their friends who had just died. So the funeral party comes to the cave where Elisha was interred. Obviously the stone had been rolled away, and they were about to have some sort of funeral service for this poor person who died. But unfortunately, as the verse says, as they were burying him, a marauding band was seen, and the man was thrown into the grave of Elisha. And as soon as the dead man touched the bones of Elisha, he revived and stood on his feet. Well, now that was the 16th miracle. So whatever God promises will definitely come true. But in these 2 short verses, I want you to think about the situation that you're left with. And this is an example of how you can pretend to be one of the characters in these stories and bring it to life. So first of all, perhaps you could pretend to be the dead person. You wake up and you're in this cave and you've no idea how you got there, and you're still wrapped up with linen burial clothes, and you think, oh, what do I do? But the mouth of the cave is still open, so you go out and you assess the situation, and all your friends, you notice, are running back to the village, and you think that's odd. But then you look the other way and you can see this marauding band of Moabites chasing towards the villagers. So you think, what will I do? So you think, well, I'm going to join my friends. So off you run after your friends, but you're still got the burial clothes, and they start flapping as you run around. Grand. Now I'd like you to be one of the villagers, and you're running away from this funeral, and you turn back to see how close the Moabites are, and instead you see this corpse chasing after you. You get a shot of adrenaline and start to run a bit faster until a little bit of sense comes in. But we'll come back to that in a minute. Now, perhaps you could be one of the marauding band of the Moabites, and you're running. I don't expect you're on a horse because they were very expensive. So you're running towards this band, this little group of villagers, to try and grab whatever you can. But you assess the situation, realise that there was a funeral, and that the villagers have dropped a corpse and just run off. But the corpse has jumped up and is running after the villagers. So you think, I've seen a ghost. And all being well, you will turn around and run as fast as you can in the other direction. So saving the Israelites. And thus God can kill two birds with one stone. Now this might be apocryphal, I'm just making this all up, but just in an attempt to bring it to life. When the dust settles, the villagers realise that Elisha has performed his last miracle, and their dear friend who had died is now with them again, but without whatever illness he died of. And there's great rejoicing. So we too, in this time of the end, we can look forward to the kingdom coming without any doubt whatsoever. It might appear to be a bit late, but it will come. We can rest assured in God's promises. So take care, and God bless you all.